on this journey. And next, we are going to have the opportunity to hear from Hirshvalanti. And so I am going to bring Hirshvalanti up, or maybe one of my co-hosts can bring Hirshvalanti up, and I will introduce her. So also alongside this moment, I believe that Izzy is going to begin the process of weaving a web for the next 3 hours, which is exciting. So you may see that begin to start happening. Izzy, just wanted to acknowledge you as you're beginning this process as well. So yeah, so I will kind of introduce you both, and then here's Valanti is going to share. And Izzy will begin a process that will go for three hours. So I'll start with Izzy. Iz Anonsky is a creative being whose work sits at the intersection of art, science, spirituality, and culture, welcoming us to further expand ourselves through immersive art installations and conceptual designs. And Iz will be weaving a large spiderweb portal, channeling the 222 energy, this intentional energy of this event and all its participants through this emergent collective presence. Beautiful. Hirshvalanti Veroniki Majeras is a computational artist exploring synthetic emotion, multi-species ecologies, and immersive audiovisual systems that connect human, non-human, and artificial life. The butterfly polytope, which is going to be shared today, is a short presentation of an upcoming art installation that Hirshvalanti has been working on that explores the migratory patterns of monarch butterflies and their collective memory building. Welcome. So excited for this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me see here. So good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. The Butterfly Polytope is a project that began with an unexpected encounter. I first saw monarch butterflies at my grandmother's birthplace in the Mediterranean, but I knew them as a species of North America. And as a second-generation immigrant in Canada, I began to try and recognize familiar plants, animals, sounds, and images in order to feel rooted in Toronto. And that moment of encountering the monarch butterflies back home stayed with me. And so I asked, how could these fragile beings exist so far from what I thought was their home? Following that question led me to the realization that monarchs can be carried by wind across vast distances, even across oceans. The curiosity eventually became a proposal for the butterfly polytope, which began as part of my dissertation at York University, which has been currently developed in collaboration with ND Studio Lab, Slow Lab, and the Alice Lab, and now with the Design Science Studio, and with the generous support of my mentors. So from the beginning, this has been a collective process, a project about interdependence formed through interdependence. Oops. Sorry about that. Oh, I think, yeah, I was running some live simulations, so they kind of failed me a little bit unexpectedly, but I'm just gonna talk over about the things I have put on here. So, or actually, just give me a second. I want to solve this. Just
Yeah, feel free to solve it. It was beautiful to see the live simulation of it moving. And you also have Izzy giving you company here, weaving. So
thank you.
all good.
Okay. Mm. All right, so I had 3 simulations open, and the one that I was gonna go and share that includes like a map with all the different populations across of overwintering sites in California just crashed on me, and it just it will take some time for the server.
I think you accidentally muted yourself, or somebody accidentally muted you.
No, I did it out of habit. I don't know why. 1 second. Okay, so let's do this. All right, I'll just share this window for now. You can see it in full screen.
Yes.
All right. All right, let's talk about community then. So what I was supposed to be showing was a map of the monarch overwintering sites in California, a part of the work that began during a residency in Santa Barbara in collaboration with Prismavera, SBcast, and researchers from MIT at UCSB. And in Santa Barbara, I had the opportunity to have direct contact with these sites, which transformed the project into a situated ecological investigation. But I'll move to the behavioral simulation, which is what I'm like mostly showing here since my other one failed me. This is a behavioral environment where these monarch butterflies glide, travel together or alone, follow shared paths or diverge, form temporary relationships, and navigate through the position of the sun, translated here into a living heat map. So what appears is not an image of butterflies, but a relational field. A species is a network of decisions, proximities, and memory. This way of working is influenced by feminist technoscience, which asks how technology can become a practice of care, how it can make our entanglement with other forms of life visible and felt. And let me see. Okay. Um, and I'm extending this kind of behavioral environment. I'll stop sharing for a second. Anyway, into a physical installation with looking at migration as architecture and focusing on taking this environment, this behavioral environment, and translate it into space to become the butterfly polytope. This will be a suspended structure of tension lines and lights, where the form traces the monarch migration across Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Each node will correspond to a real site where light will travel through the structure as a pulse of intergenerational movement. And migration will become something we can walk inside, an architecture of collective memory, where no single monarch completes the full journey. It takes multiple generations. So this migration is a form of intelligence distributed through time, a living demonstration that survival is collective, trans-territorial, and continuous. And as this migration crosses some of the most politically charged borders on Earth, the monarch moves freely. It becomes a quiet counter-geography, a model of coexistence based on passage rather than separation. As populations decline, in the installation that shows where with the light weakening, the sound thinning, and the pulse slowing down. The imbalance of an ecosystem becomes something we experience together, which brings me to a line from Euripides, which he said, "The sky is the same for all humans." Today we might extend this to the sky is the same for all life. The same air, the same temperature shifts, the same climate conditions. The monarch makes this visible. Its survival depends on a continuous chain of habitats across an entire continent. Life on Earth is a shared condition. Lastly, this environment will also be a space where humans will be able to interact through light, heat, and sound. And it will operate at the level of rhythm and energy, where processes that are in us are regulated by the thyroid. So the equation becomes, can we physically experience interdependence? Can empathy become a shared physiological rhythm? At its heart, this project is about imagination as a regenerative force, because before systems change, we must be able to imagine ourselves as part of a collective life that exceeds the human. The monarch, small, fragile, and continental in scale, becomes a guide for that shift. The butterfly polytope is a space where data becomes sensation, migration becomes architecture, technology becomes a practice of care, and where we are invited to experience ourselves as part of a living planetary network that includes butterflies, climates, machines, and each other. Thank you. And I'm very sorry. I always know the best way to embarrass myself. so.
That's great. It's, you know, the theme of the event is becoming. It's all about becoming and being in the process. So actually you're doing a perfect job of sharing your process, and it obviously involves a lot of new interfaces and experimental technology that's pushing the edges of art and science and storytelling and data. And you know, you're being like courageous to share that process aloud with all of us. And sometimes that looks like things breaking in real time and all of us still getting to hear from your heart, you know, and imagine what we can't see yet. And just really looking forward to being able to continue to make that visible. And I love this. Shelvanaya just said in the chat, no apology needed. The technology glitches are moments of invitation for us to hold you in care even more deeply. I love that Stacy pulled out this quote for you from what you said that says, there's an inquiry, can empathy become a shared physiological rhythm? And another that you said, life on earth is a shared condition. Here's Valanti. I am so grateful that you are part of this container and that you are continuing to tend to this important project and helping draw the bridges of all of our relations, and also really witnessing the more than human world in this way and helping bring that story to life. It's so important. So thank you so much for sharing.
Very much.
Beautiful. Okay. All right. I know that Eve had intended to facilitate this and there's an internet thing happening, so I'm going to bring Miss Bliss up here. Hello, dear.
Hello. I felt so inspired by that talk. I actually shared a photo that I took of the butterfly migration in California a few years ago when I was there for a birthday trip. And one of the really interesting things that I learned was when there's a storm, they all chain themselves together to hold on, to make sure that the high winds don't blow anybody away. And just another just beautiful reminder that we're all in this together. So I get to introduce Mark next, which I'm so very excited about. Where is he? Does anybody see him? There he is. There he is. And speaking of being in this together, Mark, being one of the handful of people that has been a part of the DSS from day one, and really, helping us really just in all ways hold this container together. So thank you for your presence as always. And so for those of you that don't know Mark Smith, allow me to introduce you. Mark Smith, the sense of grasping our humanity in the transition from reactionaries to refractionaries. And one of the beautiful things that has come from Mark is beaming. And beaming is, today, Mark is going to be beaming a medley of clues, epiphanies?
Epiphanies.
And story seeds with Mark Smith. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Les. It's been a joy to be with everybody all these years and go through the design science decade that we're passing through. For me, it's actually the second time I've gone through a design science decade. The first one, Bucky, started in 1965 to 1975. And in 1970, I got it as a 14-year-old, got to go on a school trip to Japan and saw my first geodesic dome. But anyway, that whole story is going to be what I'm sharing with you, because we're sharing our stories of kind of how we got here. But I got to say, I'm so happy to be here because I came looking for your stories and to get to absorb what's coming through here and now from a future that I had hoped for 47 years ago or so, is just gives me courage and hope for my daughters, for your future. So here's my story to catch you up on how I got here, and we'll give it a go. I had an epiphany. I call it the leprechaun epiphany. I caught a story. And that story started something like this. It was a song. And I saw two little girls jumping rope singing this song. And I thought that story was for me to tell back in 1980. And I became very frustrated because I realized it wasn't my story to tell. It would be the leprechaun kin that would grow into the culture that was being thrust upon us by the computer technologies that I had a peek behind the curtain and was working in to help promote them, to bring to life the ideals that were behind the very first personal computers being developed at Apple. And I had to introduce Steve Jobs and Bill Gates as keynote speakers at their trade shows. It was full of ideals, but it was also brought to life through the Department of Defense. These were tools that were developed to command and control humanity. And I needed to find a different story. I needed to find a way to change that story. But my frustration lied in the fact that it wasn't my story to tell yet. And I needed to wait 47 years to be here with you all to hear what that story is now.
It was said.
Such were the times of the reactionaries' last stand.
Long live the refractionaries.
The future welcomes you to Mycelium Murmurations, beaming a medley of clues, kinpephanies, and story seeds.
I'm going to share a few things here. One is the word clue, but spelled C-L-E-W, which is actually, when you look at the etymology of it, how we arrived at the word clue, C-L-U-E. All the clues we've heard today are strung together by the clue, C-L-E-W. That clue is what Ariadne handed Theseus when he went into the labyrinth to take out the Minotaur. That clue is a ball of thread. That was the clue that he was able to use to get in and out of the labyrinth. These are the clues that untangle the thoughts in our head, that enable us to hold on to the threads that weave us together to tell the big stories that we want to hear and live into. These are the clues.
Leprechaun, tell me an age-old secret. Leprechaun, where do you hide and keep it? You started with a word, this I have heard, and now I intend to seek it.
We're beaming now.
Backcasting Evolutionary Alliance movement.
This is Mark. I'm beaming live to you from the dome.
A sense of omnidirectional communication.
Here we go. Full circle.
Once upon a time, Mark went to Osaka, Japan, to Expo 70. He saw his first geodesic dome there.
At the expo, I saw humanity's creative potential, and then I went to Hiroshima, where I saw our destructive capacities.
50 years later, he ended up living in a dome home.
Ta-da! See you around.
The two birds conferred. It was there he first saw through the eye of Ouroboros, the tale of many, woven in time, Taurus and Ouroboros, hanging together, the commons of mind.
FFC. Remember when, for the first time, humanity saw itself whole, an invisible unity, made suddenly visible, a pale blue dot, floating exquisitely fragile in an infinite experiment. It feels like love is metaphysical gravity. It's what holds us together, wouldn't you say?
I do have a story for you that I'd like to share. You all remember when we were kids and we'd play the game telephone? And we'd stand in a circle and we'd tell the story from ear to ear that we heard. And that story would go around the circle and people would start giggling, not understanding exactly what they heard, but they'd relay that story they thought they heard. And on that story would go around the circle, evolving, changing. Well, I want you to imagine you're standing in that circle, but it's not your friends next to you, it's your ancestors, your forecestors, those throughout history that have moved the story forward. And I want you to realize that that story, when it got back to from whence it came, from where it started, the origin story of this story, from whence it came was like, what story are you tending to? I never said divide and conquer. What a foolish thing to think. This is no way to live out life. Listen carefully to what I said. It was divine and concur, to be intuitively in accord, to listen deeply to what comes through you, knowing it's healthy for you and all life on this planet. Divine and concur. That's a story I caught. I caught that story, and I'd like to make sure you caught that story, and you're welcome to take it with you and share it.
Leprechaun, tell me it's your secret. A leprechaun, where do you hide and keep it? Start with the word, decipher, and now I intend to seek it. A, B, C, D, E.
Well, thank you for going along that ride with me.
Thank you so much for taking us on that journey. And I know so many of us here, beaming, talked about regularly. So I love that we get to share what beaming is for everyone. And you will be having another beaming session in one of the breakouts soon, correct? We'll be doing that. So we'll give everybody the invitation once we get to the point of switching rooms. But do invite everybody to come and beam over in that room with us a little bit later.
Look forward to it. And here's where this video resides in my rabbit hole right there. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, who do we have up next?
Is coming up. And I'm feeling some big world energy with Rex's project. Real big world. Now, Rex is a physicist, nuclear engineer, and systems mystic, imagining regenerative tech in symbiosis with life. She works at the intersection of science, pattern seeing, and soulful innovation. A planetary scale induction concept using Earth's magnetic field and rotation to explore a globally distributed periodic energy generation system through coordinated orbital and surface infrastructure. Welcome, Rex.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead and share my screen here.
Looks great.
It looks great. You can see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, great. I cannot. Okay. That is very strange. Let me go back here. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you today about ONE, which is an acronym. It stands for Omnipresent Networked Energy. This is a regenerative planetary infrastructure concept. And that's kind of, that's a big idea. That's really appreciate your big world energy sense, George. It's so strange. Go back here again. So the goal of ONE is to establish a continuous planet-wide energy infrastructure using Earth's own magnetic dynamics. And what does that really mean? In order to talk about it, I want to just take us through a super brief refresher course about physics and electromagnetic induction. Maybe those sound kind of big, but if it's not your jam, I'm going to make this really digestible. You may remember that the atomic structure is set up like this, and that every atom has a nucleus in the middle, which is positively charged, and the electrons in the shells outside of the nucleus they're negatively charged. So some atoms, some materials they have these electrons that are out on the edge that are not very tightly bound to the nucleus. And if the outer electron is not very tightly bound, it can pop off kind of easily. And in fact, if the outer electron is loosely bound, that's how we define a metal. That's what a metal is. So let's talk about copper as an example metal. Copper has a lot of very loose outer valence electrons. And if you were to take a magnetic field, just any kind of, you could use a bar magnet. If you were to pass the magnetic field across a conductive wire like copper, these electrons would bounce from one atom to the next. And as those electrons drift, that's actually what current is. That's what electricity is. And we just borrow that movement to create electricity. So a magnetic field will move electrons in a conductive material. The thing that's maybe surprising is that the opposite is also true, which is that if electrons are moving through a wire in a current, that movement will also create a magnetic field. And that, my friends, is what electromagnetic induction is. We did it. So it's this idea that if electrons are moving through a wire, or sorry, that if a magnetic field moves through a wire, that creates electricity or current, and that conversely, just sort of to recap, if a current is moving through a wire, that creates a secondary magnetic field. Okay. So that might sound kind of big, but we've been using these ideas for 100+ years. This is how windmills work. This is happening in the alternator of your car. It's very well documented, very well utilized science. So let's go back to this idea of our entire Earth. I will not drag you through the physics of why this is important, but I do think it's interesting to note that the rotational axis and the magnetic axis are approximately 11 degrees off of one another. And if that were not the case, none of the science of what I'm going to say next would function the way that it will. But because of that, because of the fact that they are not on the same axis, that the magnetic axis is off of the rotational axis, it makes everything else that I'm about to say function properly. So if we were to go around the Earth, I want you to think about this ring as an example of how we might do that. And there's a lot of nuance of ways that we could do it, which we're not going to talk about in this talk, but just, keep in mind that we have these atoms that have loosely bound electrons around the outside. And you may remember that the Earth itself has a magnetic field wrapped around it, mercifully, or none of us would be here. And when the Earth rotates, the magnetic field moves through our imaginary ring. And that movement will create a current through the ring. And as that current is created in the ring, a secondary magnetic field will form around the ring itself. So I want to take this idea back and imagine a perspective of us being on Earth with a ring around the Earth that is creating a secondary magnetic field. These blue lines here are representative of the secondary magnetic field that is created. And this little unit over here could be an on-Earth induction unit, which could be wrapped in a conductive material, and that would functionally create the whole process over. As these as these conductive materials would pass under the secondary magnetic field, we could move those electrons and ultimately send the energy out where we would need to throughout the Earth to harness some of that energy. So this is just sort of a maybe a bit of a busy slide that sort of has all of these ideas in it together, housed on one slide. And I just want to sort of briefly state that the beauty part in the world every 12 years.
Rex, can I interrupt you just a tiny bit?
Yeah.
Your voice cut out a little. Maybe
Yes.
you should just turn off your video while you're screen sharing. I don't want to miss your video because you look beautiful, but it might help your voice not cut out.
Yes, thank you. Let's see.
I can turn that for you also if you want. Stop.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, go
That's
ahead.
great.
Perfect.
Okay. So just to sort of tie things up that, having a planetary energy system would ultimately it would allow us to have clean, limitless power, a global energy network, reduce reliance on fossil fuels, and its long-term sustainability. So I think that, this concept, while gigantic, it's innovative, it's renewable, and it's unlimited. Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's amazing.
This is brilliant.
Can't wait to get it up there and turn it on.
Let's go. Wow.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All about it. Love that so much. Thank you for that, Rex. I think we all really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And next up, let's see, where are we? Right here and now.
Looks like John's supposed to intro John. Whoa, meta.
John and John, it's getting very John up in here.
Oh yeah. All right. So next up we have John, introduced by John. John. There's an H difference though. So
In so many ways.
the John without the H. Is it John Van Meter? Is that how you pronounce it?
That's correct.
Van Meter. John is an experienced video editor, photographer, and he has studied the work of Bucky Fuller since 1982, reading and comprehending synergetics and critical path among the other works. And yeah, take it away with your video.
Thank you, John. And I think following Rex, we're going from the ultimately large to the ultimately small, because I was gifted with an image of a new way of unfolding a box. And then I decided that I would use this shape to help those the most in need in our society. So I'm going to go ahead and share my concept that I call magic shelters.
Oh, John, it sounds like we lost your audio.
Sorry, didn't. Oh, that's not. Many Johns. Thank you for that.
John, many Johns, yes. That was the concept that I started 2 years ago in the cohort, and I've moved forward, and I'm now working with the unhoused in my community and volunteering with those on the street. So it is my goal to bring this to fruition and to create a portable system for storage and people living on the streets to protect them from the elements.
Thank you, John. It has been so great to watch the evolution as you move, excuse me, as you move from concept to prototype to actually starting to work with the community. And yeah, we just can't wait until we can see the launch, and having people that are actually able to utilize them. So thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I'll second that. I mean, since you first presented your project in the Design Science Studio, John, your commitment is just enviable, and how you're turning your energy into finding resolve. It's admirable. Thank you. We are going to move on with Victor Harris. And, as you can get from maybe some of my wordplay, I just love wordplay. And so we have Victor here writes poetry as a way to encourage people to see society as the world, both as it exists and as something that can be changed through community and effort. What more could we ask for than such beautiful words, Victor? Thank you.
Thanks for the intro, Mark. This actually ties in perfectly with John's project. The title of this poem is Trading Places. It used to be that we were one of many. Homo sapiens once walked the earth simultaneously with other human species. We somewhat arrogantly refer to our brand of humanity as sapiens, the wise ones. But it was this wisdom, this ability to adapt without genetic abnormality, to learn through observation and experimentation that marked us as unusual, not only from the rest of the animal kingdom, but also from the rest of genus Homo. Our differences don't end there. As any middle schooler will tell you, we love to gossip. Although now seen through a negative lens, gossip, the sharing of information without evidence, enabled us to establish communities, enabled us to establish a shared set of beliefs, a necessary step for populations where interpersonal relationships are impossible. So what does it mean to be human? To be a modern person living in society? Our corporate media wants us to believe that as a society, we look out for one another, always looking to push feel-good stories of humanity, the teacher that raised money to help a student, the community that came together for a teacher's medical bills, the kid that took it on himself to raise money to pay for other students' lunches. To quote rap artist Brother Ali in his song, Letter to My Countrymen, but the real picture's much more embarrassing. We're still not even close to really sharing things. The situation of oppressed people shows what we feel it means to be a human being. But what does it mean to be American? Unquote. That teacher has lost 5% of their income, inflation adjusted over just the last decade, while their medical bills have gone up 28.33% over the same period. And that kid shouldn't be worrying about whether or not his friends can afford lunch, period. Richard Dawkins has a quote about the numbers of possible people who could exist, that those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton, But what if that next brilliant mind is shivering in a car with their parents? What if they're wondering where their next meal will come from? What if they're hoping that tonight they find a shelter with an open bed, a doorway that doesn't shove them on as they attempt to curl up out of the wind? What if the next brilliant mind was one of millions who slipped from one paycheck away to being unhoused? What does it mean to be American? In our current capitalist system, it means struggle. It means competition for resources. It means working untold hours in order to keep health insurance for a company that will, upon your passing, list your job opening before your family will have the chance to list your obituary. This shared belief that we were all born into doesn't have to be this way. This belief of lifting up by bootstraps has been given to us by the people who make the boots. But our entire system is not natural, is not based on evidence, other than that which it is created to justify our current existence. It is precariously perched on belief. And we, atheists, humanists, secularists, we reasonable people have confronted belief before and seen through the morass. It is time to do so again, to see not someone who has been a part of the fall, but someone with whom we can be in community. Thank you.
Choo-choo! Yeah.
Yes.
You can't spell poetry truth. Thank you, Victor. It's beautiful. And who do we have joining us now up in here? I think it's the whole crew, isn't it? We got a shift again. We're making a change in the tracks here. Or
Oh, are we there?
I think we're there.
Oh, wow. Really? Oh, you're right. Ooh, we made up time. What? Oh, well, that's crazy. I'm like, oh man, how are we gonna make this time up? Well, now I gotta get up in here. All right, so I believe we are going into a choose your own adventure window. All right. Well, let's see. Gotta get my screen up that has the schedule. So, choose your own adventure time. There are going to be 3 different things happening in 3 different rooms. One of which is a room that I think I might have to open. So for those of you in the Futures Cafe, hang on. Once Cassia starts, we'll go open that room. But yeah, there's going to be 3 different segments. So maybe what I can do is while I get a view up, Mark, could you share a little bit about the 3 segments that are happening? Can we do a little multitask?
Let me see. So I know that, let's see, I'm looking at the beaming room.
Great. You want to share about the first one that's happening in there?
Yeah, that's Daniel Lindenberger is going to share about his mycelial approaches, but I don't want to spill the beans before we get there.
Well,
but
you should explain that way people want to go experience it.
Well, they're going to, of course, this is the challenge when we get into this part of choose your own adventures. There's so many places to go that you want to be everywhere all at once. But I would highly recommend coming and seeing Daniel. He's got an incredible program and is very clear in how he shares that with us.
And I believe the thing that he's doing in that session in his meta chrysalis project is actually helping people to develop resource flows around their project. So I just think that's an important part of the information, because if people are wanting to do some resource flow mapping around their projects, it could be a really good one for them to see.
I have been seeing, gotta say, in these other breakout rooms when we've been doing this, there's a lot of engagement, a lot of interaction, a lot of ask and help in moving through projects. So it's really great to see. And then, let's see, in the Futures Cafe, let's see, we're coming up on 4:30. Oh, George, is that right? George is coming up. I've all met George. He's been helping with emceeing, but George has some great concepts that he's bringing to fruition. And not only that, but I found out he was a stuntman. And I don't know if Stephen Levitt was here, but you guys got to say hello to each other. And then we're going to go into, well, that's a good session. And then after that is Bobby Fishkin, who's working on an incredible project and going to share that with us in depth. So
Yeah.
there's a lot coming.
I'll say that for George's his session's called Continuance, and it's about the capacity of systems, communities, and structures to remain coherent under stress and long horizons. So that's a good little snippet. And then I have this special view. So because as Amanda Sage and I often say, and this is not the only thing so it doesn't only happen in the design science studio, but sometimes the train goes a little off the tracks.
A little bit.
Does this happen frequently, Amanda? Does the train go off the tracks all the time, or is it just us?
Oh, it's constantly weaving. I mean, this train, this track has been going for almost 6 years, this Zoom call, just FYI, everybody that's here. You can, through your Zoom app, you'll have Vision Train, it'll pop up, you can just jump back on. And the thing is it was scheduled the first 8 months, 24/7, because we came up with a system of how to share past the host, like you passed in a relay race. But now the train does go off the track sometimes, and we call it the renegade train. So if you know how to play music or play a podcast or something and get on and you're just weaving like Izzy over here, or like all the Lisette's painting, I see Kevin sculpting, it's accountability space. So it goes off the tracks, but then we put it back on. So he's on.
There have been times when our DSS session goes, well, maybe I shouldn't even mention, I'm not going to jinx it, but fairly far off the tracks in the best of ways, many hours later. So, okay, because this is the thing that is currently the most updated, I'm putting the link in the chat, which allows you to see these different sessions with the different Zoom rooms. So if you want to stay in here, which was the session that I didn't mention, which is Cassius's session, which is an inquiry. Does talking about the meta-crisis matter? Exploring if and how this term might actually help us clarify our theories of change and up-level our coordination. So this session with Cassius is going to be an exploration together. And he says, I argue that talking about it is one way to more clearly understand how each of us, individuals, communities, and projects, see the big picture and respond to it. So that's happening here in the Vision Train. You can go talk to George in the Futures Cafe, or you can go check in with Daniel and Daniel's project partner in Beaming Regenera. So with that, let's have somebody introduce Cassius that's not me, so I can go open the other room.
Into the beaming room. See over there if you're coming.
Okay, Amanda, can you introduce Cassius for us? Or whoever is supposed to? I'm not sure who is.
I think I see my name there, and I am very curious to learn about Cassius too. I'm going to find you. And today has already been so educational. Cassius, I don't see Cassius here.
I do see him, but I just made you the host, so I can't do anything about it. But if you go to the participant window and you click more next to his name, then you can also spotlight him from there.
I know, but he's not. Where are you? Oh, it's because you're that A with the. Here we go. Hello, Cassius. Am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, Cassius.
Cassius. That's so.
Yeah.
Where are
Pleased to
you
meet.
from? Huh?
Pleased to meet. I am from Brazil.
Brazil, yay! We have a good Brazilian crew that gathers on the train here, and we had this whole live stream from Brazil, a Psytrance deep ritual event that was here just a day ago.
Yeah,
But welcome.
just got to learn about it. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, nice. So I see a little intro here that you are a researcher and meta designer devoted to the question, how do we create systems that support us in seriously playing life together in the direction of more sacred and regenerative futures? Well, I consider those two quite a lot, so I'm excited to hear your perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for staying and sharing. And so the idea for this conversation is we actually had a couple in the design science studio cohort that we're in right now. We had a couple sessions that kind of touched on this subject of the meta crisis. And so I wanted to kind of bring it back and open the conversation about it. So I do have a presentation that can work kind of as a refresher and also introduce a few new things. But I'm intending to do this like a 10, 15-minute presentation just to get us on the same page. And also for newcomers, people who have never heard about the term, we'll also go through it. And so, and the rest of the time, so we're going to have 40 minutes, so 25 minutes or so, we can just chat and see like if it makes sense for us or not. And so can I just take it from here, Amanda, or do we need anything else?
Yes, please. Just let me know if you need any support.
Yeah. No, good. I think I'm good. Thank you. I'm just gonna share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see it, please.
Yeah, we can see it if you want to go into more detail.
Cool. Yes.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes.
So just to remind us also in terms of what's the frame here that we're holding, the name of the session is Does It Really Matter to Talk About the Meta Crisis? And exploring if and how this term might actually help us to clarify our theories of change and up-level our coordination. And so just quickly mentioning, I do have an answer for that, and I'm going to kind of argue for that and kind of open it up for everyone to kind of share perspectives on this. And so starting off, I think it's really important actually to talk about it, especially for people that are actually trying to work on some level of inner cultural, social, or systemic change. And so I see this discussion around this term, which has been kind of rising in the past few years, as really an attempt to clarify, like to the most accurate degree that we can, like what is the condition, the human planetary predicament context that we're in, and so we can clearly see the systemic entanglements and the traps and the ways that we can fall to naive or simplistic solutions in the fields of systems change, social change, and all of these beautiful and necessary work that needs to be done. And so, yeah, and personally also, I got to know it 7 years ago, and it informed and transformed me in very deep ways. So I invite you to join this with kind of your whole body. It can be a little intellectual, a little bit heavy, but I invite us to kind of just relate with it as a whole, like how do you feel just even hearing the term? And yeah, engage with the inquiry as with an open heart. So just as an introduction, there are a few people that have been for the past few decades actually talking about the Anthropocene and more recently the polycrisis, and then the meta crisis comes as kind of after these. And in this kind of historical or intellectual context, we could say that in an era defined by global catastrophic risk, which is the increase of risks that we're living right now, with exponential technology, with the degradation of ecological systems and all of political polarization. I think I don't need to talk about that. You guys are very aware. So the polar crisis kind of describes this collection of escalating crises and their interactions, how they can intensify each other. And the meta crisis is trying to point to a common sense of there are common conditions, foundational conditions that actually generate and sustain these crises. So a meta crisis is a crisis that is happening at the foundations of a civilization, arising from its core views and values, or its basic dominant worldview or cultural paradigm. And I'm going to use a lot of like quotations like this here so that we can be precise and also just like I invite you to also kind of take notes if anything resonates or doesn't that you want to discuss about later, because I feel like that's also a good way to kind of just bring what's really alive for us later on. And so for those of us that are in the cohort, you've seen these questions already, and it kind of explains by themselves like why this inquiry is kind of important. So these questions are posing these reflections for us. So one, do the world's problems have an underlying, overarching, inherent cause that we might do something about? And do the main ways that those with political and economic power currently try to solve those problems via policy, regulation, trade, technology, economic growth tend to make those problems worse? And is there a reason to think that our historical moment is qualitatively distinct from other historical moments in a way that calls for a fundamental shift in our relationship to reality? And should we take care to ensure that the terminology we choose to distill the essence of our global situation is as accurate and as edifying as it possibly can be? And is there something about the very idea of crisis that militates against the kinds of transformation that we now need? And so if we take this as even the term meta crisis is kind of pointing towards something that could go beyond the crisis, right? And so if we think about the answer of each of these questions as no, there is a good chance that you share an outlook with the advocates of the idea of the polycrisis. And if you think that the answer to each of these questions is yes, as I do, and Rosen, who wrote it too, you are more likely to share an outlook with those who feel we are contending with the meta crisis. And so he also proposes this definition, which is the meta crisis is the historically specific threat to truth, beauty, and goodness caused by our persistent misunderstanding, misvaluing, and misappropriating of reality. The meta crisis is the crisis within and between all of the world's major crises, a root cause that is at once singular and plural, a multifaceted delusion arising from the spiritual and material exhaustion of modernity that permeates the world's interrelated challenges and manifests institutionally and culturally to the detriment of life on Earth. And so a little bit more simply, also, we could say that the meta crisis is a kind of multi-systemic breakdown emerging from the foundational views, values, and institutional logics of modern culture, threatening the coherence of the current globalized civilization and the integrity of complex living systems. And also, something that feels really embodied for me, and it's really easy to see this, is the meta crisis as the sum of total human-created problems combined with our collective inability to be the people who can resolve them. So in this context, the meta crisis is an educational problem, because not only do we have to learn the skills and develop the capacities to resolve global problems, which is a new emergent in our situation, we also have to grow and mature to become the people who can do so. And so if you've also been in the cohort, you've seen this before in the first session that we had. And it kind of creates this distinction between the polycrisis, the crises that are intensifying each other, and with the meta crisis, which is trying to point to the root layers and to the metasystemic dysfunctions that both give rise to this and reinforce the situations that we're in. And so you could see this as this escalating crisis, the dysfunctions that happen based on the systems that we have created, and the actual exploitable deep ideological features and core aspects of humanity that are actually driving this. And so in this report by Life Itself, they are actually trying to identify and what are those root causes, right? And there are some core ideological features like anthropocentrism, like individualism, mechanistic reductionism, secularism, and the myth of progress that are so embedded in our culture today and reinforced by these systems such as the late stage modernity capitalism that we live in, but that also arise from this potential human tendencies that, if not nourished well, can also lead us to this path. So some of them are like the three poisons that Buddhism talks about, for example, the delusion, hatred, and greed, but also fear and control that we all have in some sense and have to learn to deal with, which then get intensified and feedbacked on based on the systems that we have built with this well-known, well-documented systemic collapses, which is, for example, the tragedies of the commons, of regulatory capture, perverse incentives that kind of keeps us stuck in this place. And something that's can be also somewhat overwhelming, but really refreshing to understand too, is like, instead of looking at these as kind of the sum of all problems and kind of this intense paralyzing force, the idea of a meta crisis is that actually there is some common aspects that we can work on that could actually like give rise to a different form of civilization and relationship that we already in many projects and initiatives and traditions across the world have been working on. And this is a way to also put it that makes it very clear. So there are two generator functions of existential risk. And one of them is rivalrous dynamics, or rivalrous win-lose gains, multiplied by exponential technology, lead to self-termination. And complicated systems, human-built systems, usually based on extraction, subsuming their complex substrate, the life that they depend on, become increasingly fragile until collapse becomes imminent. And so if we look at those two generator functions, they're driven and they're created by this relationship between choice and causation. And both of them involve technology, without which we wouldn't have the power to induce this form of existential risk that we're living in right now. And science has given us a solid theory of causation, which has given us incredible technological power. But we do not have a similarly well-grounded theory of choice, ethics, to guide how to use that power. And so the default theory of choice has been game theory, the playing of which leads to these generator functions. And so in terms of a response, we need a philosophy that gives rise to understanding choice and causation and the relationship between them that can inform effective choice making in the presence of exponential technological amplification. And this has been the work of many of the wisdom traditions and traditional indigenous knowledge systems as well, which create this kind of ethical and relational ontology in terms of how to relate with the world. And so what this is basically saying, in my sense, and Schmachtenberger, who proposes this, is we must figure out anti-rivalry, which can also be called here, especially in this circle, like synergetics. We need to learn how to be in synergistic relationship with each other. And so there are a few initiatives that are actually like trying to map, okay, what are the responses in terms of like social change, in terms of systems change, and in terms of inner change that are actually trying to respond and create this kind of new paradigm. And kind of my invitation here and my reason for also bringing this here is to kind of recognize ourselves as well within it. Like we're trying to respond it, even if perhaps we didn't have that language. We're trying to create that world that works for 100% of life. And so where exactly are we based in this kind of map, or where we're most called to contribute to this transition? And so one of the reasons that we're also bringing this is like, okay, if we can recognize that we're part of this larger ecosystem, can we find ways to coordinate, to collaborate that go beyond mere projects, initiatives, but actually like this whole ecosystemic view that can support each other and share resources and all of that? And so I'm running out of time. I think I'm extending myself. And so I'll just skip some things and kind of go near the end. And this I can kind of also share later on if anyone want to kind of take a deeper look into the references or anything like that. And so this is kind of one way to also frame this kind of social change that is actually paradigmatic, integrative, and pragmatic, that's actually trying to work at the roots. And that's what they're trying to map there. And here, Brandon, who was like our first also visionary teacher, also has done this incredible work on mapping worldviews and kind of building upon this long tradition of study and research on this as well. And I feel like it's super powerful if we can first kind of map initiatives, and that's kind of even my project and invitation is along those lines, but also recognize ourselves in terms of like worldviews and kind of there are some patterns that are pretty consistent if we actually like research, and that's kind of their work with the Institute of Applied Meta Theory too, of like people actually like arrive at an effective value mean, which is kind of an overall pattern of the mind in which equilibrium is reached and one's values and worldview tend to stabilize, setting the framework for the political behavior of a citizen. So it's coordinated around a certain set of memes that are really that can actually be researched, and we can move towards ways of seeing, being, and knowing in the world that integrate the truth, the validity, the values of all of these different ways of seeing and being and existing in reality. And that's kind of the invitation too, to question how can we learn from this from different people with these different backgrounds and kind of integrate those insights and learnings into this more holistic ways of being. And so I'll just keep this and kind of invite us into the conversation actually, and saying that there are many ways to frame this and to kind of see what it's based on, and some that go back even before this term of meta crisis, like a crisis of consciousness, like and perception, which Capra introduces, or the outcome of a paradigm, and Donella Meadows and all of that work.
You still have a good chunk of time, Cassius. Don't rush.
Okay, thank you. And so I feel that one of the most powerful ways of seeing it too is simply to point at this intimacy or this relationship with reality of how we're seeing all of these crises unfolding that we see here, like the epistemic, eco-social, ethical, and existential, that are rooted in this wrong, delusional perception of reality in which we're entitled to extract, and how that also unfolds a kind of secular meaning crisis, and there's this overall sense of lack of intimacy and with reality. And so this is also a way of seeing it that brings to the center the economic monomyth of neoliberal late-stage capitalism, and that shows that it's also grounded in the roots of imperialism, colonialism, supremacy, patriarchy, and this is proposed by one Indian scholar. And so I'm also trying to introduce a few different frames and ways for us to look at it together and understand really the invitation here is to see like how do these different ways of looking into the entangled systemic mess and context that we have created for ourselves can actually clarify the different theories of change and ways that people see, okay, where should we work on and in which layers are we actually working on to be able to see exactly how we can collaborate and in what different ways we're actually seeing reality too. So I feel this invitation to consider a meta crisis is to also invite us to consider all of this and to reckon with these different ways of responding and to figure out like what's our way, right? From where we're coming from and how are we seeing this unfold in our own lives, and where can we actually like affect change. And so last thing to close it off too is Samantha, which was another one of our visionary teachers, brought us this sense of also root causes and in the disease of separation. And she was pointing out to 6 of them. And I would love to just read you them so you also know. And we can kind of discuss also what do you see as the essential causes, or what other perspectives you hold. And so she says that separation has 6 essential causes. 1, the expansionary impulse of an immature creator, preserver, and destroyer species, which is us. Stories, ideologies, and ontologies of separability, and the insidious illusion that anything exists separate from anything else. Structures that reify the story of separation, like the fiat currencies, the insulated buildings, the standardized education, the zero-sum game dynamics across multiple players, which means that everyone must participate in multipolar traps, which is also known as Moloch, and systems of dominion, colonization, patriarchy, and racism, and dark triad individuals and cultures who are leveraging their increased capacity for violence to maintain power and status. And so if we're facing these challenges, kind of my question and the kind of open inquiry is like, who is working on each of these? Like, are you guys working on some of them? I believe so. And who is clarifying, identifying, or who is engaging in this investigation so we can consider this and create more possibilities for work that actually works at those roots. So last slide is one of the indigenous scholars, which I love and is also like has been mentioned a few times. The SS is Vanessa, and she brings this perspective to the meta crisis, which is also similar yet different, which she says that rather than understanding the present moment as a set of overlapping crises, which is the poly crisis, we suggest that it is better understood as a meta consequence, the cumulative and entangled outcomes of a way of organizing life that is reaching its limits. And the language of crisis often carries an unspoken hope that order can be restored through corrective intervention, frequently by a strong white male authority figure. And their work invites a different reckoning with the systemic limits and responsibility. And kind of to balance this, we also recognize that leaders like Churchill and Machiavelli have made statements such as, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And these quotes, among others, serve to highlight how those engaged in high-level strategy can be expected to leverage crisis to the benefit of their own agendas and objectives. And on the other hand, those who care about the well-being of the commons and life in general are far less likely to leverage that same sort of strategy. And so this is also why I feel like bringing this to the group and to discuss, because I feel we could use more strategy as an ecosystem to respond. And that sentiment, I think, is well captured by the statement by Martin Luther King, which is, "Those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war." And so just would love to hear your thoughts. I see a few comments here and in the chat, and would love to open the floor to discussion, free discussion, whoever feels called to share their sense, and yeah, jump in.
Oh, well, hello. I just got spotlit.
Me
Thanks,
too.
Roxy.
You both looked really inquisitive, like you had thoughts. So I was just encouraging your thoughts to come forward.
Well, I can look into the chat and see also there was a lot of things that came through that time that you were sharing. I think this is all a very fascinating. I mean, you dive so deep. I'm going to have to rewatch that presentation because there was a lot of information packed in there. And I have to be honest, my attention was a little divided, navigating many spheres in the meta field that we're in. So, I mean, responses like, how are we contributing though? Each in our individual way is the big question. And I think the invitation, right, that we become more articulate about that and therefore active too. But Mariette, good to see you.
Hi, everyone. Cassius, I was having a great time listening. Amanda, it's so great to see you and everyone else. I agree with you that it is deep, and Cassius has been tending this depth throughout. But I do wonder, regarding that meta crisis and the philosophical pieces that we're talking about, you know, when we talk about like the terms and the language, what I think that also is really interesting is like how are we going to move past all that language and how do we disseminate that and how do we continue to like innovate in those spaces too, right? So I wonder if there's a because I love that piece that I really think you're seeking that out and you're finding that. I wonder if there's anything about that because also with like Daniel Schmachtenberger and stuff, there's so many of us that know and yet there's so many of us that don't know we have a meta crisis, you know. But I do love what you bringing up because you're doing exactly that work to make people understand, to find solutions. And I feel that very is really inspirational. There's also an inquiry that came into the chat. Let's take a look at that. Someone's like, the state of Cassius system to support embodiment. Yeah. There's a supportive embodiment of this knowing and self-authorship. I mean, it's really what we want people to do, right? We want them to be able to author themselves, find their individual ways and their pulse points. Cassius, do you want to respond to Patricia's question? Yeah.
Yeah, I can. I'm just wondering if anyone has also more thoughts to share, and maybe we can kind of weave them together. And yeah, just also wanted to create more space if anyone has, anything to share.
All right, let's see what's coming up in that chat. I just wanted to, I'm trying to finish an update on our run of shows so it goes to the site, so I won't stay up here for long, but I just like this core inquiry at the end. That is that quote, and I keep hearing it. It's like, we just need to be just as organized, right? Like, how do we get just as organized? And I do think that it is this coordination, collaboration, sort of conditions for for working together that will really support, which is part of why we do this kind of educational practice work, because we get to see through other lenses and challenge our assumptions and evolve. And so the more we're able to evolve and recognize we have a coordination issue, not necessarily an alignment issue. Of course, there's also lots of alignment issues as well, but it just opens up a lot of potential, which it connects back to Malcolm's session earlier, like finding that good future, like really harnessing that potential. Yeah, so that's a little bit of what's stirring in me. Okay, I'm gonna go try to finish updating this. Yeah, but I'll continue to seed it, and I do invite others to join us up here as well. But I think that's it. The process is our evolution. And so by engaging, we do evolve all of it. If DSS does that, right? That's why we're all here. As we present, even in the salons, and give to each other, we're evolving the conversation, consistently. And so every engagement is the point, versus finding like the exact answer to something. And that's also really important because it is it is multi.
Yeah, I wanted to come jump in and kind of redeem myself a little bit in that way because I feel that what you're speaking to, you have so many technical terms, and the ways that you've thought of it is like deep, like, you know, science, really. It's like looking at the whole, the thing that's happening, right, from that lens. And I think coming at it from all these different angles and then sharing it in kind of forums like this while somebody's weaving or painting or, you know, and it helps us to see the different angles of a lot of questions people are feeling. And this is like the purpose, right? Like there's an achievement of ignition that happens, right? And so if we keep doing that and exposing that, right, it is a response and an answer to what's going on, right? It's a living model. And so to keep practicing that living model, yeah, is then attractive, more attractive, right? You become the better idea.
You become the living idea, I think, is what you're saying, Cassius, too. Is like we become the biological system of resilience, right, and regeneration, whether we even know those terms, right? Because even the polycrisis existed before we had a word for it. Yeah. Cassius, would you like to comment on that? Take
Yeah,
us.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I just want to check how much time do we have? Does anyone know, please?
I do know. I'm looking at the run of show. You have until, oh, I need to go to this other section, 5:23. 13 more minutes.
13. Cool. So,
13.
yeah, I can, I guess, share a little bit and reply to that. And also curious, but keep coming like comments on the chat if anyone else wants to dive in. Yeah, many possible ways to take in like what you have shared like in right now. And I also see those questions, especially by Patricia here. And I think I might address one of them and see how if anyone has anything to jump into in terms of how they're receiving this. In this work of like who is doing this work right now, this is actually like very related to the work that to the project that I'm bringing to the SS, which is this educational initiative in Brazil that kind of aims to do this kind of bridge of global South, global North, and the different ways of knowing and being and that are being cultivated. And so we see like I said, I really like the frame that Life itself was proposing there, which is like if we see the different people engaging in actual like grassroots work in kind of social and systemic change work and in terms of inner change, that I really like seeing this as like paradigmatic, integrative, and oh gosh, I forgot the last one. Paradigmatic, integrative, and pragmatic social change. And so I see a lot of people doing this here in Brazil and in the global South, but that are not necessarily talking to like in terms of like global risks or any of that. And so our work here has been recently really interesting to kind of bridge this with like capoeira, the tradition of like enslaved Africans that migrated to Brazil, and also how they propose like cosmologies based on this kind of relational ways of being, and how sometimes it's like challenging for us to see each other in terms of like this commonality. And so I feel like that's also a great point of what Amanda brought in terms of like the language and being able to see how people are working on kind of same or similar problems through these different lenses. And yeah, that's what I get it most here in Brazil. We're like actually working on a kind of an ecosystem map, a very big one to kind of extend that one that was made by Life itself. They kind of have mapped mostly this ecosystem in Europe, of people doing this kind of work. And so I'd love to also have your input in at some point of like, who do you see is doing this kind of work? And how do we extend this sense of being an ecosystem of response? And so we're working on that and would love to kind of open that up for your kind of input too.
You have a question here too, Cassius, about how can we rate or grade countries and their impact on this subject? That was from Leo.
Wow, intense question, Leo. Do you want to kind of just add to it, maybe with your voice? Like, how are you? Where are you asking this from? Like, how do you see this? Why does it matter for you?
Sorry, I'm in the background doing work in the kitchen, but yeah, no, let me chime in. I think we have what Nate Higgins calls the superorganism, which is countries basically being all these extractors, almost 200 countries. So I'm curious, we all need a stable planet. We need a planetary commons that sustains everything. So I was thinking about the work of Rob Stewart, the conservationist, who actually came up with something that was, he tried to create an index to show how planets were, or countries were affecting the total sum of what was happening on Earth. So I have this in my head right now, like how can we actually start to use real data about countries and their extractive methodologies, connect them back to the meta crisis, or what we're calling the meta crisis, and show countries as either being regenerative or not, or in what category. So it is a deep question. It is sort of like Buckminster Fuller's world game, where we start to actually kind of look at this. And, maybe there's a few models out there, but I'm thinking more about solutions. Like, how do we shift from empire to planetary, looking at countries, then looking at corporations, and then give people a bit of like a model or an overview to help us understand the meta crisis and then start to reverse trends in the meta crisis. That's just a little bit of the more granular thoughts on the question.
Yeah, I love it. And I can answer, but if anyone also has an answer or wants to reply, I would love to invite that in. If anyone has been also thinking about this.
Well, I will say one thing. To that point, you know, all of our changes are kind of based on percentages, right? We're not looking for 100% perfection necessarily. Utopias are a slippery slope. And so I feel like Cassius, one of those things you said about bridging, the bridging. So it would be interesting to see like how many of those items could be mapped. And then also, how the incremental impacts, I think, as they change. And I wonder if you even could also then, also add your thoughts about Leah's comment and inquiry, and that was a great inquiry. It is fine grain, and I think we could with Cassius, this could be the part of the fullness of the project in the DSS. So I just wonder about that fine grain aspect, and also again in my mind sometimes I think, well, if we can't get perfection, or if we're as we move towards 100, working for 100% of life, how could people have almost like a regenerative, not market, but this commons, and how we improve that.
Yeah, and this ties to me with many things. I think the world game, like you pointed, Leo, is an amazing reference, and I'm constantly learning from it, and also attempting to kind of learn from the modern versions, and seeing like who are the people that are trying to also come up with that in terms of, and there are a few indicators, right? Like for example, the donut economics. Like there are some people doing that in kind of real time work. And there are different ways to measure that. And also the IDGs, right? The inner development goals. And so there are different ways of that people have been kind of looking at it. I really like Daniel Schmachtenberger's approach in terms of yellow teaming as well, which is like really taking this very similar to kind of the comprehensive aspect and anticipatory aspect of design science, of like really trying to map out like the first, second, third, fourth order effects, and like tracking that and integrating that as wisdom that's in the system somehow, and that we have to engage that into our design processes and plug that into the participatory civics process, which also Patricia, who's here, also like works with that and has a like amazing an amazing project on it. And so yeah, I feel like there are a few initiatives kind of going in this direction. And I think the most lenses we can have, the most integrative we can be, right? And so there also shout out to Catalist, which has also been integrating this and doing this kind of work in terms of like setting up like knowledge collaboration commons and ways for us to kind of share information. So if you don't know about it, we are starting to use it in DSS, and Vincent has also done a great kind of mapping project in terms of like these different frameworks and approaches, and actually like making them interactive, so we can actually like start feeling this and collaboratively like sourcing this knowledge, so that we have this kind of fuller vision of the whole that we are embedded in, right? So yeah.
I am totally like, I was like hearing myself talk, but it's not me, it's you. And you have such a different like network, right, than I do, and like way that everything connects, but it's the same interest, which is really fascinating, because I feel like this map, it's like, how do we map the network between the nodes of the people, the places, the projects, right, that are on board the train? That's the language I use, right? It's like, you're either on the train, you're not on the train, and the train's going towards a future that works for all, right? And so we got to link it together. So how do we do it in a way that is the most useful for those that need it and are looking for it, right? Because there's so many different ways now, and I'm like, well, I guess we just all got to start creating those maps, and then the right system will all then be absorbed by, which will be the one that will be used the most user-friendly, I guess, the easiest to access, to like put in your part, and then to find the others that you're wanting to connect to, right? But that map, I'm totally interested in that map.
Same.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's work on that, and whoever wants to jump into the train, please do, because yes,
Can I
lovely.
make a request? Oh, sorry. Can I make a request, Cassius? Can we start pulling in some Portuguese words, some indigenous words from Brazil too? Can we start like just breaking down the colonialism of English language always dominating all of our bridging? I mean, I think that's one of the things in these maps too, I would love to see is I would really love to learn, more language that isn't just based coming from the language that won patriarchy and all of these other things. Because I think that also within the language it helps us to map with more authenticity and with more aliveness. And I wonder if you could speak to that, being in the global south, if you ever feel like, wow, we have so many terms here that work for us, but they could really inform others.
Yeah, that's a lovely exploration, and I would just say my last thing, so we can also close. And thank you, Mariette, and everyone who kind of also participated. And yes, and we're exploring many of these words, and even like in terms of like the collective that I'm part of, which is kind of bringing forth this initiative, this education initiative that we're working on. We have been exploring it, and it's still not an exact Portuguese word, but I feel like it's this kind of a mixture. We call it the Metatropical Collective, and meta with double T as well, which kind of stems from Buddhism, which is this kind of expansive love for all beings. And so it's like mixing Buddhist and kind of Eastern with the meta, with the actual like abstraction, with the tropical love and warmth that we all feel in terms of the culture that still lives and resists in many places. So it's been part of our exploration. I'd love to keep sharing and learning together. Yeah.
Let's jump into the metatropical inquiry on the vision train.
Sounds like a plan. Welcome anytime. I'll show you how to schedule your trip, you know, meet here or we meet over there in the Futurist Cafe or in all the places. I mean, we're creating these nodes and these spots so we connect in space, right? Space stations like this, and we connect in real life, right? And we're doing it. Thank you so much, Cassius. This was super interesting. I am definitely going back to watch your presentation again because that was so, I wasn't able to be fully focused then, but I was so inspired and excited to review that again.
I also love that you wove in some of the things that you've been either like learning or being exposed to newly in Design Science Studio, or affirming or just bringing back up some of the work that you're already woven with. It's just really nice to see how it's coming together for you and also supporting the inquiry that this is ultimately grounded within. So that was really very satisfying as well. And I love that this was the conversation right before the art jam, because now we can just let it all seep in. Yeah. So, yay. Maybe I should introduce the art jam. Nico, can I also do a little screen share of your painting?
Yes.
Okay, so I brought up, this is the painting Nico's been working on during the last 4 hours of the piece. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. This one started a couple of years ago in Italy. It's something. It's a vision of. I guess it embodies the embodied visions. There is the basically what we are wanting to bring here is to have a place for visionary art and movement, and this painting is, yeah, it's about that. It's my vision that I saw, and it's my partner dancing around. I don't know what entity is arising from the water. It's a sacred place around here in Finland, that lake and that forest. And yeah, it's an interesting exploration. I love to explore.
It also sounds like an invocation, right?
Invocation, yeah.
And that's the power of drawing out your vision, right? And writing it out and speaking it out. And this is such a beautiful example of the evolution and the invitation you've made towards being a vessel, right? To support creative life, right?
Yeah, I guess we would want many times we want that things happen right now and right away, but sometimes there is just its own rhythm and you just need to have patience. Yeah. And yeah, just go do what is to do at that moment, step by step. Yeah.
Late here in Finland. No, what time is it?
It's 3:28 in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
So it's a little bit late. Yeah, but I'm happy to be here still now and share this one, and I'll go to sleep very soon. Yeah, I know that you guys are keeping the flame up.
Thanks for fanning the flame late into the night.
Yeah.
It's so
Thank you all.
Miss Kanitha, I saw you came off mute. Did you want to share any words with Nico before he goes?
Yes, that picture is powerful. I could see all the different layers. I've been hanging with artists later, or lately, sorry. So it just really, oh my God, this piece is like glorious. So that's beautiful, Nico.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, Amanda initiated me to this type of painting, so a lot
And
of
it's almost
appreciation.
never ending, huh? It
Yeah.
just, the layers, the stories, they keep coming.
There are so many things to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, techniques, yeah, a lot of things.
Well, this is a good time to kind of ground in the moment, I think. I think I'm gonna ground us all in the moment that we're in, which is, so here we are. Oh, it still says the vision train's happening, but Amanda's being a sweetie and is gonna skip it. But don't worry, Amanda will share many times into the future.
We're in it. We're in it. We're on it. It's happening.
It's very much happening. And because of that, we're gonna do an art jam because we've been talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and thinking and watching and witnessing and holding space. And some of us have been making art the whole time. Some of us have been making spreadsheets, much spreadsheeting. So now we have three things actually happening here. So we are aboard the Vision Train. We're having an art jam. So this is now one of the things that's happening is Izzy is doing this live weaving. And then we also have an invitation for everybody to just make art. So that's happening and is gonna continue going on for the next, let's see, we have still another 20 minutes. I don't even think this is updated. We have more time than this, actually. Hold on. So many spreadsheets. Okay, here we are. Looks like, yeah, until 6, actually. So we will be.
Should I put on some music, copyright-free music, and we can do a little spotlighting, or we could also just ask if those that are on camera making art at the end want to share a little bit?
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, this is updated. I hadn't refreshed it. That's what was happening. But I did want to just tell people before we put on some tunes that if you are feeling activated, then there are still some other sessions happening in the other rooms while we have the art jam. So in the other 2 rooms, we have Aaron Haldeman, who is sharing about his project, and it's called Regenerative Operating System. And he's sharing about the process of becoming, actually, and really like what's coming alive for him in the development of the work. Bobby Fishkin is sharing about positively deviant examples to co-design personal collective Goldilocks zones. Bobby Fishkin is a G&a-half. And then Mark is going to host some beaming, which is always legendary. And then we will all come back for our final segment all together, where we'll hear from Miss Kanitha, Maria Teresa, Yaya, Rex, and then we'll close it out, and then we'll have a dance party. So that's what we have ahead. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to you, Amanda, so we can have some music, and I'll put the links in the chat in case folks want to go into other rooms. But yeah, definitely invitation to make some art about it.
Well then, we're gonna keep streaming, right?
Yep, we'll keep streaming.
So because of that, I'm choosing some copyright-free music. I wish it was from a friend of mine right now. If somebody else has any copyright-free music that they have a direct link to, would like to share, I'm open to that.
I found one that I had as a backup. I can't tell you that it's great.
Yeah, I don't know if mine's great either, but I like that it says happy life on it.
Let's try it. If it ends up being lame, we can try this
We'll
other
find
one,
something else.
which
Yeah.
is chill, soul, and jazz beats.
All right. Music. Yay, music. Thank you, music. So I just, as a little preface here, this on the Vision Train, this started out, the long title of it is the Nonstop Vision Train Global Art Jam. And it was started in 2020 on March 24th as a call to friends all over the world and artists to come gather together. Let's, listen to music at the same time, listen to talks, share our work, and create our most important work in a time of global change, connected, alone together. So that's the spirit that kind of weaves this space, has continued to weave this space, is this collective studio, really. So let's be in that studio together. We'll jam out for a little bit, and maybe near the end, we'll just see who's on camera. We often do this on the train. What are you working on? What's your vision? What's coming through? Share it in the space. So good to see you, Zarzor. Yeah. Sarah holds it down on the train a whole lot, and good to see Skatha, Miss Velvet Cream on the train. Juju, making her neo-couture awesomeness. Each piece totally one of a kind. All of us are one of a kinds. And Lisette Murphy up there airbrushing those beautiful irises. Wow, those are looking exquisite. And Izzy, that's been way cool to watch you weave that gorgeous piece there. It's like Indra's net, little droplets. That's what it reminds me of. So yeah, anyone else want to jump on camera and make something? Maybe in like the next 15 minutes, maybe I'll go get on camera and do a quick scribble. Just come on, we could do anything. So I'll share my sound and let's go.
You want me to try the chill soul beats?
You know, this is like so embarrassing. There's this is a set, a live set that might, I don't know, might not get flagged. It's LT. It's a book of set that's actually really kind of cool. Feels like more Revision 25.